Last time we talked about tradition, and I wanted to this today talk about education. So maybe we can start with the original concept. What is education? That sometimes you have talked to me about, which I think it's very interesting. And then I want to learn more about it, like also the form of education, the education system, and going into that. Like, let's see also in 1 hour how much we can talk about. But yeah, I'm interested in
If we don't finish today, we go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. As I told you many times before, it's useful when you talk about a concept also to make a bit history of the word which has been expressed in that concept. Like education is come from Latin, edu means come from, ducere, which comes lead. So lead from within. So the idea is that you don't train somebody to achieve certain objectives, and you don't fit someone to a system.
Yeah.
Like in Italian we have this word formazione. In English it's training, but it's a bit different. Formazione is forma is shape, giving a shape. But generally, formazione is giving a shape to fit something. Typically is to fit into a system, to fit into a production chain, to fit into a social role. That is formare. So you give that shape that the raw material, in that case the child, can fit the job, can fit the role.
Yeah.
Now, education is not formazione, because formazione is to give a shape for a certain direction, while education is coming out from within. So it's to lead out, not in order to fit someone a different system, but in order to make the development, the full potentiality of what is inside. So the personality of the child, in that case, but not necessarily, because education is not just for the child, but the idea is more for that. No? It's to lead forward, to lead out, to let it go out, to develop what is within. Something, of course, more difficult to understand in modern times, because what's within is nothing. There is nothing. There is no, there is. The idea of education is that there is a soul, there is a personality. In Greek terms, you would say also that there is a God, there is a spirit. You could say, use the term you like. The personality perhaps is the best in modern times, but personality not in the sense of, again, not fitting a role.
Yeah.
Is what it's really you. So of course is also research of what is really you. Now the fact that it's you doesn't mean that you know really what is really you, no? And you don't know who you really are, and you don't even know how you can really take care of yourself. So now, so you say, why do I need the help of somebody else to let come out what I really are? Well, this again has to do a lot with the concept of soul, your deeper personality, whatever you call, has to be searched. It's not immediately apparent. It's always there. Of course, it's you. But you always get your identity in among many different relationships that you have. You learn about yourself from the relationship that you have with others. You never have yourself in abstract. You cannot see your eyes. You cannot taste your mouth. You cannot feel your soul except in the feeling that you have in that interaction with others. How much of those interactions is you? How much is others? How much is really what you are? How much is what the others would like you to be? That's not clear at all. When you are a small child, you don't even know the difference between you and your mother. What is you and what is your mother? Until you are born, you accept perfectly the same thing. Then you're hungry, you search for the milk, and then milk is you or not. For the child, it's the same thing. And so that the knowledge of not that you have a different body from the body of your mother is never completed, and in a sense is never true, because you're never different. If you consider mother the nature, you're never really a different body, because you need to breathe, you need to eat, you need to drink, and you are in the you can consider nature as a womb, of which you continue to live inside. You never live outside the womb of nature. Maybe somehow outside of the womb of the mother. It's not so easy, at least psychologically, to get full. You never really get fully out. You are always in the middle of a certain psychological and physical relationship. And searching what is really you is not easy. It's never easy. It's a search. Now, so you have to do the search, and you have to develop it. So to develop your identity, to develop your will. Will is different from desires. Is what I want it to happen, because desires are many. Will has to be guided. So this process of understanding what you are, and this process of developing what you are, because what you are in the original concept of education has to grow. So if you are a seed, you must become a tree. And so you need to take care of you, and you need to nourish in you. You need to relate to the environment, but in a way that doesn't just make yourself fit in the environment, so that you fit you fit in the environment, but also you make the environment fit you. This is education. So lead out. Now, it's actually a Latin translation of more a Greek concept. This is the basic, this is where we can say European philosophy, I don't like to call it Western. European philosophy, let's say the Roman Greek tradition, especially was developing. It was based in Greece at that time, where it happened, like Renaissance happened in Italy, but the original philosophy happened in Greece, with a lot of Persian influence, which now we don't have it recognized, but that's the moment. So Socrates is okay, we start with Socrates, not the real philosopher. Socrates is the one who put that concept. So, and that concept in Greece was called pedagogia. Pedagogia, that means the education should be a pedagogia. That should be the way of delivering, of letting pedagogia come from the job that was actually Socrates' mother's job, of helping the woman to deliver. Like the midwife helps the woman to deliver, but to deliver the child of the woman, not her child. Doesn't put the child in to deliver. So the philosopher, the educator, the teacher, helps the child to deliver its soul, to let it come, to develop. So it's a process of helping the natural delivery. It's not of imposing anything from outside. So that has two basic ideas. One is that you have to deliver what you are and not make it into something else.
Right.
The other is that it's not just a spontaneous process. It's a search. It's a job. It's a discipline. It requires effort. It's a natural in a way, but it's cultural also in another way. So that requires philosophy. That requires love for knowledge. That requires a deeper understanding. The teacher, in Socrates' terms, is the one who helps you to look inside through questioning, through giving a discipline, giving an orientation. Also, of course, instructing the person about the reality of the environment, because when you come out in an environment. So you cannot just abstract yourself from the rest of the world. But you don't just fit into it. I mean, first you have to know what it is and then fit into it, so that you don't get your identity only just of environment. You're not just one of the crowd. You must not fit as the stereotype of the crowd. You must first understand what you are, then you relate to the crowd, and possibly not to the crowd, to the community that you choose, and you have a creative relationship with it. And that's the difference between just being in society as a crowd and be in a community. And you cannot be in a community if you don't know yourself, because you should be an active and creative member of the community you belong. And if you don't take out your personality somehow, not really independently, but autonomously from the environment, then you are not a creative contributor. So this dynamic between, let's say, letting the person come out his soul or her soul, and instead of letting the person fit into the environment, has always been the dynamic and also the politics of education. And or even different political systems have very much this different approach. The kind of political system that we create that kind of society which develops, which helps the person to take out their souls, and stay we develop that kind of society which make the person fit in the society. So is the society a tool for helping the development of the person, or are the person tools or instruments to help the development of society? This, I think, rather than left or right, which is very modern, these are basically the political divide. What is the objective and what is the instrument? Is the society an instrument for the development of human personality, or are the persons an instrument for developing the community? And in a sense, you can always say that it's both. But the political systems differentiate themselves about the stress that they give one to another. If you take one, somehow you must take in consideration of the other sooner or later. But the priority is given the priority. In the economic model, is giving that model to make the persons, is the economy a resource for the well-being of the person, or are the person resources for the well-being of the economic system? That's the basic question that you do before you do socialism, communism, capitalism. That's the first question you have to make before you give an orientation. So it's a dynamic that continues throughout.
And what's the Eastern idea?
Eastern idea, let's say Indian, because Eastern is a bit too much. Let's say when we say Indian.
Yes.
Okay, let's say not easier, because there are different things, different Islam, in Hinduism, Buddhism is different, and Chinese Taoism is different. There are some similarities, some connection, especially some connection between the traditional system and the modern one. Indian. Well, India has a wide concept of dharma as a kind of natural law. So, in a sense, the concept of law is more flexible than the concept of law in the West, but it's more natural. So, in India, the concept of dharma, which is also a law, but is also nature. Now, nature is not something that you're going to change. Nature is something that you're going to discover. And in India, so the concept is more about the concept of discovering your nature and then living obediently to your nature, being in harmony with your nature, rather than taking out the spirituality, like an individual personality that is unique. This idea of uniqueness is more Greek than Hindu. The concept of Purusha, in fact, in India, which is similar, is not a part of nature. Purusha and Prakriti and Dharma and nature are different. So, and the idea that Purusha is coming out from nature is not in there. It's not nature that delivers the soul. It's always there somehow, but it's independent from nature, let's say. So in India, the concept of education is more of discovering your true nature and living accordingly your true nature. So it's more an inquiry, it's more knowledge. So in a sense, discovering your true nature is also discovering that you are a soul, but you are always originally free. And discovering that freedom of your soul, to say it's enough. Now, in the Greek approach, no. Freedom is, theoretically is there. Aristotle would say impotency. Impotency is there. This is the tree in the seed. Important. There are still a lot of steps to be taken before the seed becomes a tree, and especially before it makes flowers and fruits and make other trees. It's not just there. You have to develop it. You have to help it grow. You have to create the conditions that the tree, which is importance in the seed, becomes an actual tree, a tree in action. So that is the process in actuality. Yes. So that process from potency to actuality is the development. So you have to develop your freedom. You have to develop your personality.
And the teacher, what?
The teacher is in the Greek term, in the Socrates term, is the one which helps the development.
And in India?
In India, since it is more a discovery, it helps you to see, helps you to realize, helps you to take contact, it helps you to know. But in India, you don't have that concept of spiritual development because it's originally free. You just have to realize, you have to express, you have to know, and then act accordingly what you learn. In Greek, it's a bit more, well, it's not enough to know. There is an effort, there is a discipline, there is the social politics to do in order to live accordingly what you know. In India, there is less social politics about development. Actually, there is more, let's forget about this society, which is a mess. So do we want to really listen to our soul? Let's go to the jungle. Let's go with good people. Let's make a community. Let's not get too much involved in the social system. Something, yes, depends what you do. But okay, as a young person, you stick in a family, you stick in a duty. But at my age, I shall now take the freedom, go to the jungle and enjoy, because society only constricts you, and then listen to what you are and live accordingly to what you are. You aren't able to do it in society. You did your duty, but you don't need to do politics in order to be free. Well, in Greek and even more Roman, yes, freedom is a responsibility. You cannot just that's remaining very much in the Christian approach. You have a responsibility for the freedom of the others, not only for the freedom of yourself. And as you discover your soul, the virtue, or the Roman would say the virility of the soul, the virility not in the sense masculinistic, in the sense that what makes it really the value of the soul is your commitment to the others also, to yourself and to the others. And without a political process that gives a shape to this search for freedom, then you are not really free.
Now I'm doing, while I was filming for the documentary in Varanasi, I was asking people like Gurujis or Pandits in the temple, like, are you giving this knowledge to someone else, or do you have a disciple? And they said, some of them answered, no, I don't have a disciple. And I asked if they are worried that there is no disciple. And they said, no, if the disciple, it has to come, you can't force, it has to come, this disciple has to. So it seemed risky to me for the knowledge, the Indian knowledge, this philosophy.
It is risky, and probably it also has been historically the reason why India, which 2,000 years ago was, of course, the leading country economically and philosophically, and even before 3,000 years ago, more was the leading country, was the leading place from many point of view. But without that kind of political commitment of transmission of the knowledge, it lost ground. So they took it a bit too easily, and Buddhism even more than Hinduism. Let's just look at our own spiritual development. Well, the others will invade you, subjugate you. Now, nothing to do with the military power, but also in a sense. But if you don't take care of the tradition, doesn't transmit automatically. Like if you don't take care of education of the children, that doesn't transmit the values. That it's a responsibility. If you don't take that responsibility, you weaken the system. It's good also not to worry too much. I mean, but you just say it's God the decision to know how much should be done in the country. But that's a little. That it seems to me like in Nepal, when I was moving in Nepal, there was the bus driver stopping at the shop, having tea, but also having rum, eating something. And then I was telling them, well, but don't drink too much, because don't worry, we'll stop to the next temple, we'll pray to Vishwanath, and then we'll go. Well, okay, that also, but I'm sure that all the bus which ran into the outside of the road, they also went to the same temple before, and probably to drink less would have been a bit more effective than just going to the temple. I mean, a bit fatalism, which is not Indian tradition. Indian tradition in itself is not fatalistic. A certain kind of Indian practice, yes. In Christianity, we also have, there are the 7 sins. Yeah, one of them is achidya. That is not taking too much care, justify your laziness, and which is considered as bad as violence, as bad as the other big sins, the capital sins, of course. This achidya mentality in India it's not considered so much a sin, actually, maybe somehow even a virtue, and that's the danger. That's the danger. I agree with you on that point. But it's not a matter of tradition. Like, for instance, in the West, but I don't like this word, let's say, in Western compared to India, you have other kind of risks. It's more a militant religion, or it's more, because it's politically, it's more imposing, so there's more element of violence. Doesn't mean that the Western approach is violent. It doesn't mean that the Eastern approach is achidya. Well, but there is more tendency to fall into that trap. That's why it's so important to see the others. Because by seeing the other traditions, then we also know better what are the traps in which we historically have fallen, which is not the reason, which is not because of ideological mistakes, but because of historical practices. So when you give too much priority to one element, you may forget other elements which were there also in your way of thinking, but just you're not given enough space.
So when we talk about education, we look like, okay, you explained how it's not formation. Formation is a different thing. Education is a different thing. What about, so that is like if there's one teacher, what about societal education, in the sense that very often the issues I think the young people have is with the educational norms. So you should do like this, you should do like that. If you and those create the most amount of issues in psychological issues also. If you're a man, you should be like this, and it's correct. These forms of education, which are societal education, and they come down as kind of like religious, bigotic ideas. How do why are these norms so connected to education?
There is always an aspect of a number of shoulds that should be given, because you need to know the grammar. Like there is a correct way of putting the language, and there is an incorrect way of putting the language. So you must be able to handle the grammar. Also the grammar of the respected social behavior of that context. If you don't know the rules, you will go into trouble immediately, because society is conservative about the rules. They are needed in order to survive. Of course, the rules are, as we said before, inherited from before. So down there is the question, are the persons made for the rules, or are the rules made for the person? But rules should be there. If they're instrumental or if they're the scope of it, it's a political question, but should be there. Now, when you set the rules, you're not setting everything. So I'm setting the rule to allow you to express your thought, but I cannot give you the rules that express your thought, because the thought should be your thought. If you don't have the rules of the language, you'll not be able to express your thought, but you cannot express anything just with the rules. So the two things are in a dialogue. Now, if you just say, I don't want any should, then you don't know even how to talk or how to behave. Then if I impose what you write, or impose what you say, or impose what you behave, that's not really education. It's not even giving rules, because rules are a way of evaluating what you do, what you must do. So but sometimes I feel the youth wants different rules, but forget about what is the player of the rules. So you cannot have the freedom by a set of rules which make you free. Yeah. Freedom should be there, should be originally. Rules are always somehow limiting, but that kind of limitation is a way of articulating, and you must express your freedom through somehow those limitations, knowing that they are limitations, and knowing that your way of expressing should re-articulate those limitations in a way that frees whatever can be freed of you. You cannot create a good love story on the basis of setting the rules, but you can create the set of rules which fits the love story, and your love story in a context where you have a certain number of social rules. So sometimes you can say, well, let's show that we follow different rules. Somehow say, oh no, let's be safe. Let's play safe. The different rules we play in our home, but outside we don't want trouble. That depends on the game that you want to do.
So basically, it's a play. Like, you don't have to take it too seriously.
Rules are the set of. You cannot have a play without the set of rules. You can decide to change, but yes, that's the. And that sense is a nice that playing the rules in India. I play it, but with some detachment.
Leela is
Leela play. Leela is game. So play socially, but don't identify yourself with society. Because of that political responsibility that is more in the West, they tend to overestimate the rules, searching for the kind of set of rules which are good. But they never fit fully. So the language that we speak now is created by the mistakes that many people had done with the rules before. Whenever they found that mistakes fit better than the previous rules, that becomes a rule, and that becomes a limitation for the next generation. But that kind of limitation helps you also to articulate the thoughts. So there is a dynamic between rules and freedom. They need each other. Freedom changes the rule, but you cannot express the freedom unless you have a previous system of rules. Like Benedetto Croce was saying, every problem we have has been caused by the previous solutions. So everything that we socially, both personally, so everything which now see as a problem is because before it was a solution that now we see that has created a new problem. And that new problem requires a new set of rules. So you cannot, that's why tradition is transmitting on values, not transmission on norms. That's why education is to let develop their soul and not to fix behaviors. Because once you fix behavior, you fix the rules, then you don't have anymore the values, you don't have anymore the persons. But if you don't have the rules of freedom.
And these social, for example, a lot of issues are born, for example, I don't know, in with social rules that create a certain culture. For example, I don't know, in Japan, there is a big problem of men suiciding because a man without a job is socially unacceptable in Japan. But it comes from a previous time in which nowadays that time has expired, it's finished, there's a new era. And it's like the rules, the social rules don't fit anymore today's time, and people still identify with them, and then it creates depression and lots of problems.
And that's also nothing new. That always been that. But I wouldn't say that rules create culture. I would say the opposite. Culture creates rules. Now, when culture evolves and rules remain the same, they are constricting. That's why creative culture reframe the rules. The important is to preserve the values. The values are those we need to preserve. And the important element of culture is the cultural values. Cultural values create rules, cultural values create culture, shape culture. And culture somehow inherit rules and sometimes reframe the rules. If you are rigid, at the level of rules, then you tend to stop the system. You don't understand anymore, and all the person becomes unfit to the new reality. And then there are different ways of unfitting. So there are those who say, okay, we're not fit of the new reality, let's change the reality. Or they say, oh no, we're fit of reality, let me go out of this place. Maybe on the mountains, maybe society, whatever, but because, but it's a normal process. It's always happened like that. Society tends to be conservative, not traditional. Its philosophy, its education, is artistic work, which is more traditional, which wants to bring society ahead. Social systems are conservative. If you don't have innovative philosophers, innovative artists, innovative politicians, then you tend to conserve society in a way that people have changed, society has not changed, and then everybody is unfit.
And isn't there a way to make society less conservative?
To make society less conservative, why should we do that? I mean, there is when you drive the car, you need the accelerator and you need the brake. Now, so conservation and innovation should be both there, and it should be somehow free to choose among the two. If you don't have a good brake system, then you cannot even accelerate. So you accelerate as much as you also have the brake. And you need to be able to drive and to choose. So if you don't have a system of conservation, you cannot have a system of innovation. The two should be dialogic. They shouldn't ecological balance. So if you destroy the other, you destroy also yourself. If you take out the brake, you cannot even accelerate. So an element of conservation should be there. An element of innovation should be there. The people who are good in conservation are not the best who innovate. Sometimes they fight. They shouldn't fight. They should cooperate. But you cannot have the system which educates. You need a teacher which educates. You cannot have the rules which create freedom. It's the freedom which has to create rules, which will create new limitations, which will have to be overcome in the next phase.
Also because people, like you can make a new law, but people will do something around it. Like if you only make the law, it doesn't make...
To get something around it, it's another issue. That's a part of the game. Please, make also the kind of rules which can be implemented, because sometimes they put too many rules, something that people are not fit to do. Like, for instance, in the Western society now, there are too many rules on the young people who actually cannot make family, who cannot do job, because they have to take too many rules in a community. There are too many rights of the old people. There are too many rights of others. And so they have duties, they cannot cope with it, to just give it up. Because you must, and so too much bureaucracy in the administration of things is too much. I mean, you kill the business. So, but you cannot have businesses without a certain kind of rules. But if you want the businesses to be run successfully just for a number of rules, you cannot, because rules of the business may kill the process of business itself. So it should be a balance between certain kind of freedom and certain kind of regulations. And if you put too many regulations, you kill the freedom, you cannot make business. If you put everything free and you cannot have regulation, also you kill the business. How much should be balanced? Well, that is the political choices. But you cannot have a system that is automatic.
And so going back to education, like the education system we have today in India and in Italy, because in India, I want to also explore more like what was the traditional form of education and what is the education today. And there is a conversation also around in India right now around the fact that the education system we have today is the British education system. And does that really serve the society, or should it be changed a bit or innovated, or should we bring in the traditional form of education that was Indian and not? And even here, I feel there is a conversation around education because many times you will say the kind of schools we have today are made for people who go to factories. So you educate them 8 to 5 to go to school, and then you take them to factories. And everything in the world has changed and evolved except schools, So what do you think is the school is the school today serving today's society, or do you think there were different forms of educations that were better, or should we go back or should we go forward?
Of course, again, in the education system today, we have the problems that have been created by something that were supposed to be solutions one generation ago. What you have the problems now that you attribute to the British or generally the Western, actually we can attribute to the industrialization of society. So only that we said, so we could even say in Italy perhaps British, because they are the one who took the lead of the industrialization. But but just because they took the lead doesn't mean that they accepted. So in India, it's very much accepted the idea of industrialization, of commercialization. So, but they were coming from a generation back, at least a generation or more. The idea of economic development of a national level, and the idea of a state which takes care of the education of the children, and creates the kind of human resources that fit the economic development, especially industrial development, is of course a modern idea, especially in India, but even in Italy. And especially it was a way of saying the state should help families. The state should help with other institutions. The idea was not that parents, communities, and churches and artists should remove their duty from education. The idea was the state should cooperate, should help, should empower. In a way, what happened is that the state had taken over. Families do not have time and means to educate, which may be also a sign of good, because so the women also work, they are more at home, but in fact, they don't have time to educate the children, and at least in a normal industrial setting, because also now that both work, rents have gone up because they can afford those rents, and now, in any case, they both need to work.
It's not there.
Choice is not there, so that we should have done... when we said women also should work, that we say that everyone should work part-time. But if we have created a big advantage compared to before, we say both should work full-time, and because then we don't have time to leave the families, then we don't have time to make children, we don't have time to educate the children, especially when we remove also the older generation, we separate. So it's a logistical nightmare for new families. It was not supposed to be that. It was supposed to be the state which helps the other. But it was clear before that family was the main ground of education. And not only the family, the community. One of the reasons why I brought you children in India, was because anyhow, where you are living in India, there was a community educating the children. So the people living in the same street were the uncle of the children. The elder girl was always the DD of the children. I mean, so it was a community education. And all people like me would have gone into the street and they would have called me grandfather, and I would have told them stories without exactly the difference if they're my children or not children. So the community was very much there. A system of promoting that. So when you were 3 years old, there was always a 2-year-old girl which was calling you Didi, and that being called Didi was making yourself responsible. So you would look if so the mothers could send the 2-year-old girls in that system because there was 3-year-old girl by being called Didi, which was a response. And then you were educating yourself as a teacher by looking after a younger child. So nowadays you don't have anymore the child that is not moving out from an adult overlooking them and taking control. So you never have this kind of society or church. That was not part of the original plan. That is a consequence. This is a new problem created by an older solution. But we have to look after it. We have to consider it. Because then you don't have a British system of education, but you simply have an industrialized approach of the system of education, which has removed the traditional institutions which should get back their role. Families, religious communities, social community, now the spaces, the responsibility between the children, artists, creative, they should also all have a role. It was never decided they don't have a role. It was just decided that the state should have a bigger role. But problems, now we have to face the problems. Now, we will not face the problem by saying we should change the system the state educates also. But we should re-empower the other forms of education in a way of subsidiarity, where different institutions all can express their role, and not centralize in a plan that we can make the best possible plan. But the state is state, must play its game, not take it all. And we have to look after this. We're not looking after this enough. We search for a better way that the state should educate, and that's not the issue. Actually, the best the state educates, the more disempower the other institutions. So it's a good in a sense. Like I've seen that the state system doesn't educate you well enough, so I have to take you to India. Otherwise, I wouldn't have taken you to India. Now I see that in India itself is not. I don't know where you are going to take the child, but you have to take it into consideration. I mean, whatever your logistic, your plan, you have to take into consideration. It is not enough to bring them to public schools, and so especially if you want to educate the person, the freedom, the soul. Educating the soul is not a state job. It's somebody else's job, and nobody is doing it. The state should educate you more to fit the industrial system. Yes, that's state job. It's not all. That is the standardized. That is the formazione. But educazione, who is doing it? The problem is nowadays not doing. No one is doing. Newspapers are informing. They're not educating. Culture is entertaining. It's not educating. Churches are just a formality. There is no committed education. So who is educating? No one. That's a problem. There's not a problem of syllabus. It's not a problem of what you transmit. The problem is who is the educator now, and the system of solidarity and the system of coherence should be there. Now, India should be a bit more objective, say that it's not the consequence of the West what happens.
So maybe today we can. I have another question. Then we can close today's. But first I'll ask you a question, and then I'll tell you what I want to take. So you have taught. I was curious. You have taught in India and you've taught in Italy. So as a form of teacher, okay, what are the positive things that you learned from and me as a student? What did you like from the Indian students, and what you feel the Indian students could learn from, let's say, Italy, because let's not put east to west, let's say India, Italy. And what are the Italian students, the value that they have as students, and what they've learned in their culture, and what they could learn from Indian students? Like, where did you have more fun also teaching?
Well, of course, my experience is limited. That I can start with what the positive things. Now, the positive things in India, which actually I spend more time teaching in India than here, but the positive things after teaching in India is the respect that the children give to the teacher. It's very nice to arrive to a classroom as a teacher, and the formality that the students give, and that you feel a sincere formality. And not just say that I like when I enter the stand-up. That's just the way they salute, the way they respect. Why? Why that? It's seen in the West, they say, oh, these are just submissive people. It's not submissive people. They are clever people. They know that the more they respect you, the more they make you feel as a teacher. So they give you the mode of teaching, which is in their benefit. So they want to learn. And so if we say, please, teacher, how are you? Teach us. No? And because they want to learn. When I married your mother, for the first month, I used to arrive late, a little bit late in the classroom. No? And probably the Italian student will be happy touching that. I got a lot of scolding. Teacher, from the time you got married, you arrived late. I immediately started to arrive the right time. But so because they want to learn. And so they want to spy you. So that was a very nice way of scolding me that why I am arriving late. So I wouldn't have got that from the Italian students. Thanks God that the lesson is lasting less. So it's a way of empowering, a way of giving that respect that you feel commitment. So that I like very much. What I like more when the teaching environment is in the West is that you can make workshop. So you can have a kind of laboratory in cooperation between teams to make some experiment. So not just to transmit the standardized knowledge, but to let's work on it. Let's make a workshop. So in the West, I can say, okay, what I wanted to tell you, I've written. Read it. Next lesson, we'll practice it and implement it. That is very difficult to do in India because they expect you to teach, not to give you something, because they don't expect the workshop. As I told you, they expect the knowledge. So they want to understand, and then they want to practice themselves individually. But practice them collectively in the classroom is not their framework of mind. So instead, I think that what I could say, I can also write, and then read it, and then let's practice it. Let's see it. Like if I say I teach project management. Okay, these are the things that I want, that how project management should be done. Now in the classroom, shall we make a project? Now, this not easy, but you can still do, you can try to do in the Western system. In the Indian system, they will get angry because, well, you are supposed to teach. Why should we read ourselves? Because we want to make questions. When we read, we don't have you as so we want to hear from you. That's what I like, what I don't like. What I don't like in the West is when the challenge. Okay, let's see, do you have something to teach? And we make objection. And do you respond to the objection? So that demotivates me. And I have to overcome. I say, okay, no. I would immediately say, I have nothing to teach you because you don't have anything to understand, because you're not curious. I just have to spend another half an hour here because I'm paid for that. Unfortunately, let's spend that half an hour. I mean, my reaction, while the Indian student would make me motivated, even if I am distracted or I'm a things, or while they attribute me a responsibility, I mistake. The tendency when I enter into the normal formal classroom here is that the challenge, and even if I'm well motivated, I say, well, no, this is not for that. It's like giving pearls to the pigs. If you challenge the teacher, you have nothing to learn. So why should I teach you? I'm paid. You are forced to stay. You're forced to stay. Let's be in this cage for another hour, and then everybody will be free. So, not that I.
Maybe at least not as the first approach. Like once you learn, like it's nice to have like some kind of discussions also to be like, but what about this or what about that? And ask and obviously create curiosity and ask questions, but not in as a first approach.
Yeah, not as a challenge.
Yeah.
Of course. Let's see together. Let's see what. But the idea is very important. The respect of the teacher is very important, and the tradition of respecting your teacher is very important, and it's very empowering. Now, and generally, respect is fundamental. Respect is fundamental, especially someone who is serving you, because the teacher is a servant. It's serving your growth. Now, the idea that you don't respect someone who is serving you, it's very uncivilized. That you challenge, that you have to prove, well, it's not convenient. But empowerment, the real power is empowerment. So the tradition which teaches the students how to empower the teacher is very strong as a way of educating the soul.
I feel in Italy, I know about Italy, it's both ways it's happening. Like the student doesn't respect the teacher and the teacher doesn't respect the student. Like it's somehow also a vicious circle.
It's a vicious circle, of course, but respect should start from the student because he is the one who's been served.
Mm.
So the responsibility of giving respect is always by the one who is receiving the service. So because I'm giving you, so if I'm not respect, I'm giving you something that you need. If you say, I don't need what you give me, then I have nothing to say.
Or at least you need to give a chance, like in the sense that I could, after 3-4 classes, be like, he has nothing to give me. But first, I start with the respect.
There is always something that can give you. Respect is exactly that. Creating the condition of understanding what that person has, because that person is a soul, that person is a story, that person has a vocation, that person has always to give you. Now, your responsibility is to try to understand what can you get and how can you enable that person to give. That should start from you as a student. Now, the educational system should teach you that, how you understand what the teachers can provide you and how you provoke the teachers to give it to you, because you're the one who benefit to it. So the school environment should provide that system. Otherwise, you demotivate the teachers. And then once you demotivate the teachers, there are nothing, they can tell you some formal rules, but nothing constructive. In that sense, of course, you need educating getting that condition is also a way that the state should provide the kind of system that empowers the teachers and appreciate them. They are not well paid and so on. But once you are entering into the classroom, whatever the salary of the teacher, whatever the capacity of the children, then, at least in my mentality, then you are somehow taking a role. Taking a role which is the chain of knowledge which is coming from old age up to you. That opportunity is up to you. You must make the best. Well, whatever the state is paying you, whatever be the level of the student you have in front of you, then you have some sort of moral responsibility toward yourself also. Because you have received, and now is your chance to give. Use your chance the best, but don't justify your laziness.
Yeah, that's true. On the other hand, in India, sometimes I feel that the student's respect is very nice, and I think also I learned that from India. But going, for example, the Krishnamurti school taught me it was a beautiful balance, because there Krishnamurti encouraged questioning, encouraged asking questions, which was already a lot for Indian schools. Like sometimes you're not allowed to ask questions. The teacher gets so the fact that taking that from, let's say, the Western concept of not challenge, but the idea of like asking questions to your teacher, and this is
It's a part of the system of education, of course. So the same system of education that should teach how to respect should also teach how to question. But questioning is different from challenging. So is curiosity. That's normal. It's a part of respect. I want to know more. Not I want to turn down what you say and challenge and say that I'm nothing to teach, to learn from you, because then, of course, why you're forced to stay. Well, I'm also forced to stay. It becomes a negative dynamics.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe in next time we can talk about freedom in the social sense, in the individual sense, like what is freedom. And
I appreciate your good expectation towards me. I try to cope with it.
I like how sometimes we talk about, what this concept of like also the choice of freedom, the choosing, like, also what is choice as individuals? Do we have a choice? Don't we have a choice? The Indian way of looking at it, or the Italian way of looking at it, and also like, how I always choose according to what is more convenient to me. So if the Indian choice is Indian society has a better choice, I choose that. Or if the Western society has a, so also like not on the basis of our knowledge or of our environment, we choose what for us is freedom.
Yes. The question, what is freedom, is a bit too high. But what is the relationship between choice and freedom? That gives me a clue.